Now, I remember, of course, you also had when you entered the store, off to your left was the candy counter.
Yes.
Peanut bolsters, grade A's. That is Klein's grade A chunky.
Yes.
Lady fingers. We call them nigger babies, licorice. And then you had these long licorice things with little dots on them. I don't remember just all kinds of penny apiece.
Penny apiece.
Yeah, peanut bolsters was my favorite. Penny apiece. Just sensational. And then at the end of then you had, maybe the very first thing was watches and pocket knives and that sort of thing.
I think so.
Yeah, then was the candy counter. Then there was kind of an open flat space and a little break to get in behind the counters, and then about down in the middle on the left was where the cash register and the scales and all that was.
Yeah.
And my goodness, you folks had about everything. I mean, you could buy plants in the spring to plant. You could buy buckets, shovels, gloshers, clothes, house goods, threads, nails, sulfur.
Plowshares.
Yeah. Guns.
Footwear, rubber footwear.
Feed.
Feed?
We did a lot of feed.
Roofing.
Roof, yeah, glass. You guys had that glass cutter where you could cut glass.
We had a glass room.
Fence wire, anything.
And it was just crammed with, it was a general store. Whatever you needed, it was there. And it was provided an outstanding service to the community. Even though there was little competition, you guys had the market edge all the way through from back when your father took it over, when, in 1921?
Yes.
Who did he take it over from?
Simon
Rhodes.
I think it was Simon Rhodes.
Yeah, okay.
I might add that Simon Rhodes's initials are carved in the barn door yet, if you'll note, in large at least 2 feet high, SBR 1920.
Yeah.
Ed Rhodes it was. Ed was his dad.
Right, Simon was his son.
But it says SBR on them.
Well, he would have been more likely to do the carving. And of course, Simon is still with us down in Selinsgrove. Now, you say in '62 you bought into the N.H. Riggle, so presumably you sold the store in '62. Wasn't there a fire or something, or was that later?
That's later.
I sold the store in '62 to T.W. Early.
Right.
In '64, he sold it to Richard Hackenberg. And 2 weeks after Richard had it, it burned.
And you guys were still living, though, in the apartment?
In the house, that's right.
So you were really burned out or smoked out of your house?
They burned the building to get us out of town.
Yeah.
That was November 8th.
November 8th, 1964?
Yeah.
So that's when you ultimately settled in Beaver Springs, or in Spring Township.
Right.
Then what was the history of the store after that you're aware of?
Well, right after that, I sold it to Roy Thalman. And then he put one of those racetracks in there. And after the racetrack, it
was a drugstore.
Davis's Drugs.
Yeah, so that brings us up to date on that from 1921 right into 1985, and it was primarily always a grocery store.
Right.
And it was just absolutely outstanding. Now, you guys also have another career, and you mentioned working for Governor Duff, well, actually his assistant attorney general. But you gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, have been involved in political activities. When did you first become interested in politics?
1952.
With Eisenhower's?
Right. I ran Eisenhower's campaign in Snyder County.
And
again in '56.
Right.
And then Max, my brother, took over the post office, and he resigned as a county committeeman, and I took over his position as county committeeman. And in 1960, I was elected chairman of the party.
Of Snyder County.
And I stayed in there till 1982.
For 22 years, you were the county chairman of the Republican Party here, and that was coincidental with quite a few Republican governors, Scranton and Schaefer, and now,
Thornburg.
yeah. So, that was the most interesting time to be a county chairperson.
Yes, it was.
And Beatrice, when did you become interested in politics?
Well, I guess I sort of fell into it or grew up with it, living next door to Alvin Walker, who had been county chairman prior to Stan for 18 years. And because of Stan's interest, and
Well, also, Tilly was director of the Bureau of Motor Vehicles.
Yeah.
And you went to work in Harrisburg in 43 or 44.
43. 2
And
years
that was-
after graduation.
And that was not entirely, you certainly had merit, but it was in a political capacity, in a sort.
Oh, yeah.
So, I guess Toey Walker, you might say, might have been an influence on
Yes,
you very
he was.
early on.
Yes, he was.
Because he probably was an influence before you met Stan.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were active. Did you, other than supporting Stan, which would be, I mean, the spouse of the county chairperson would be a very responsible position. You have to dress just right and act just right in order to...
I did his office work.
Did a lot of book work.
did all the book work and all
Yeah.
the secretarial work for him. What was, perhaps, this may require you to think a moment, what was the most interesting thing that happened during the 22 years of your tenure as a county chairperson? And let's,
You mean one of the highlights?
yeah,
Well, one of the highlights was inauguration of Richard Nixon the first term. We spent 4 days in Washington at the time when we were, as a county chairperson. I was invited to a lot of events that were off limits to anybody else. You had to go on special invitation.
mm-hmm.
That was one of them. Another one was during Nixon's, it would be his first term, I guess. I was in Washington for a seminar, and we were invited to the White House, about 50 of us. And Trish Nixon was the hostess.
Oh, that would have been
Very
very
interesting.
nice, yeah.
A lot of interesting things happened, but those were things
Oh, that
out
would
of my
be,
mind right
yeah,
now.
sure, that's of a national nature. And Beatty, do you have any things that you remember other than those two?
Oh, there were many political functions that were very interesting and was happy to be a part of.
Let me ask you this. What were one or two of the greatest thrills you had in inviting people into your home or having guests come to your home?
Well, I think I should say that until just the last few years, we always had win, lose, or draw, we always had a party at our open house for all interested Republicans following the closing of the polls on election day.
Uh-huh.
And many committeemen came and waited for the returners to come in to see whether their candidate had won.
Well, didn't during the bean soup, didn't some distinguished visitors come and see you at your house?
Oh, yes.
I remember you
Harold-
telling me one time.
Harold,
Stassen?
no, wait.
Harold Stassen, yeah.
Harold Stassen. No, it wasn't.
Harold Stassen bought a pair of rubbers at the
Oh, they
store.
were okay.
Oh, really? Harold
Yeah,
Stassen?
Harold
bought a
Stassen.
pair?
It was raining, and he stopped at the store. I thought it was Evie Dirksen, but it was Harold Stassen, and bought a pair of rubbers. And I thought that was really something.
Oh,
a pair of rubbers.
that almost ties with Tom Mix buying an ice cream cone from Grace Shepherd for
Yeah.
Beavertown history. And also, Governor James stopped in at what we call Sniffer Bubs.
Oh,
And Abe Kearns was just a boy of 9 or 10, went up and said, who are you? Well, I'm the governor's bodyguard. Do you have a gun? Yes, I do, right here. Abe says, can I have a shot? That would be, that's the way we kids were, you know, you share and share alike. Well, that's something that adds interest here, that Harold Stassen, youngest governor of Minnesota and perennial presidential candidate since '52.
Yes.
So he ran again last year.
Yes.
He bought a pair of rubbers in the store in Beavertown. I don't really know that we can, we haven't touched on everything, but it is a cool evening, and it's starting to cool down, and I think we perhaps used up a lot of our time. I just want to invite you back when it's warmer and better. We'll set it up, and perhaps we can continue our conversation and get into some other areas of characters of Beavertown and activities in Beavertown of your youth and growing up, the flavor of Beavertown during that time, and how it's changed. Because it really has. Yeah, well, I'm glad that you came on this cold January evening. So Stan and Beatty, thanks a lot on behalf of the Historical Society, and we'll look forward to another interview at some future time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm glad to be a part of this.
Thank you.